Welcome friends, you're watching the Ruslan Belov channel. Today is May 21st, 2026. And this is one of those days when something significant is happening on virtually every sector of the front. There's a lot to cover, so let's get straight into it. Sumy sector, the third battle for Kondratovka. We start in the Sumy sector. Over the past 24 hours, Russian units have recorded advances in the Kondratovka area. This is already the third engagement for this settlement, and the stakes keep rising with each round. Russia isn't fighting for Kondratovka because of the village itself. The objective is to break into open operational space. Once that happens, the axis of advance could split in multiple directions, one of them pointing toward the settlement of Khotin. The assault is ongoing, the tempo is picking up, and that's worth keeping in mind. Kharkiv sector, striking the logistics chain at Chuhuiv. Moving to the Kharkiv direction. In the early hours of May 21st, Chuhuiv and the surrounding district came under strike. Fires broke out in the aftermath, including at a fuel station. This wasn't a random target selection. Chuhuiv is a critical transit hub. It's the main artery through which reinforcements, reserves, and equipment are pushed toward the far northeastern corner of Kharkiv Oblast, where Ukrainian forces are currently trying to stabilize the situation west of Bilyi Kolodyaz. Systematically degrading that supply line won't produce immediate results, but the cumulative effect could become very painful for Ukrainian units operating in that area. On the sector itself, some of the adjustments recorded over the past 24 hours have been confirmed, others have not. What is officially confirmed, Russia's Ministry of Defense and the Northern Group of Forces reported the establishment of full control over Shesterivka. We're making the corresponding update on the map. What does this mean strategically? Shesterivka, together with Sosnovy Bor and Losivka, forms a bridgehead from which Russian units could develop pressure eastward, directly toward the rear of the Ukrainian grouping concentrated in Bilyi Kolodyaz. That's a real operational prospect, and control over Shesterivka brings it meaningfully closer. On the Ukrainian side, AFU, Armed Forces of Ukraine, have been counterattacking at the base of the Semenivka salient in recent days, around the settlements of Vovche, Lyman, and Sahelne. According to available data, Ukrainian units made some limited gains over the past 24 hours. But it's important not to overread this. The counterattack has a purely defensive purpose, to slow Russian momentum toward Ukrainske, located southwest of Bilyi Kolodyaz. Not to seize the initiative, not to reclaim lost ground, simply to slow the advance. We're adding a grey zone to the map, as fighting in this area is confirmed by multiple independent sources. A reminder, significant reserves were transferred here from the Kupansk direction back in late April and early May. Those are the forces now being used in the attempt to stabilize the Bilyi Kolodyaz sector. In parallel, Russian forces continue pressing along the Vovcha River. According to analysts, the Russian army is entering the final phase of the fight for the forest tracts along the state border. AFU now hold only around 10 to 20% of the total woodland area, literally 2 or 3 forest blocks. The battle for the last Ukrainian defensive strongpoints in this area has, in all likelihood, already begun. Kupansk sector, questions without answers. Now to the Kupansk direction, and here I want to say something that deserves your full attention. The Western group of forces operates in this sector, and there are serious unanswered questions about where the actual front line stands. Throughout 2025 and 2026, Russia's Ministry of Defense, the Western group of forces, and the General Staff have repeatedly claimed full control over Novusinov, Hlushkivka, Kovsharivka, Kupiansk-Vuzlovyi, Kupiansk itself, Podoli, and several other settlements. A year and a half has passed. Today is May 21st, and in all that time, not a single piece of objective footage has emerged from west of the red line we mark on our map. Not one geolocation, not one video that conclusively proves Russian forces from the Western Group reached the Oskil River in this sector. These settlements remain partially uncolored on our maps for exactly that reason. There is no confirmation. What's more, in the early hours of May 21st, pro-Russian sources published footage from the Kovsharivka area. The video shows Russian FPV drone operators striking AFU positions directly within the settlement. We were able to geolocate 2 episodes, One strike on a specific building, another on a multi-story structure inside Kovsharivka. The conclusion we draw: either Ukrainian reconnaissance and sabotage groups are still active inside the settlement, or, and this is entirely plausible, Kovsharivka remains at least partially under AFU control. This does not match the official reporting. We are noting the discrepancy and will continue to monitor. Lyman sector, canal crossing, and the threat to Kramatorsk. The Lyman direction saw several significant developments over the past 24 hours. Ukrainian forces launched a series of counterstrikes toward Stavki and, according to available reports, managed to partially restore control over a number of positions. Russian forces, meanwhile, continue glide bomb strikes against Lyman, Druzhkivka, and Kostiantynivka. The headline development here comes from pro-Ukrainian mappers, who report that Russian units have crossed the Siversky Donetsk-Donbass Canal. In May alone, Russian forces have established footholds on the eastern outskirts of Malinivka and Tikhonivka, effectively encircling the Ukrainian strongpoint located between them. Fighting on the western bank of the canal remains intense. What does this mean going forward? Russia's stated objective on this sector is full control over Malinivka and Tikhonivka, followed by the establishment of a bridgehead directly opposite Kramatorsk. Kramatorsk is the core of the Sloviansk-Kostiantynivka agglomeration, the main logistics hub for the entire region. Strikes on the city are already occurring daily, thermal anomalies are logged regularly, and FPV operators are increasingly active within the city limits, targeting AFU vehicles and transport. If the bridgehead is consolidated, the pressure on Ukrainian supply lines in this area will intensify dramatically. On the Kostiantynivka direction, no changes recorded in the past 24 hours. Dobropilya, strikes on the city and surrounding area are noted, but no map adjustments. Zaporizhzhia sector, 3 key settlements on the verge of falling. The Zaporizhzhia sector is, by any measure, the hottest stretch of the entire front line right now. The map is changing almost daily. Russian forces are pressing on key defensive lines, Ukrainian forces are counterattacking. And all indicators suggest the tempo will only accelerate from here. Eastern Zaporizhzhia, Huliaipol encircled. The most alarming update first. Over the past 24 hours, Russian units have significantly improved their positions around Huliaipol. The situation already resembles a cauldron. Most of the perimeter around the city is now covered by Russian army reconnaissance and sabotage groups. Ukrainian units continue to hold the settlement itself, but it increasingly looks like a classic encirclement. AFU will likely maintain resistance inside the city for some time, after which a relief strike should be expected, most probably from the direction of Omelnik, aimed at punching a corridor for withdrawal or rotation. Verkhnya Tersa, a matter of days. The settlement of Verkhnya Tersa has fully entered the grey zone, the infiltration phase. This means one thing. Within days, both the Ministry of Defense and the Eastern Group of Forces will announce full control over it. There is no longer a single square meter on the map that AFU can be said to hold with confidence. That's not the same as saying Russian forces control the whole thing. It's more that we've entered the phase where one side holds the basement and the other holds the roof. But the direction is unambiguous. The fighting here is winding down. Russian army reconnaissance groups are already pushing to establish a buffer zone between Verkhnya Tersa and the next line of settlements, Kopani, Dolinka, Rovne. Initial units are reportedly already entering those locations. Voskresenka, the last block. A similar picture in Voskresenka. The latest map updates indicate Russian forces have established control over nearly the entire settlement. Ukrainian forces hold only the northern edge, the northern section of Centralna Street, and a single road leading toward a tree line, through which supply, withdrawal, and rotation are presumably still being conducted. The remnants of the Ukrainian garrison are pressing against that line. Eastern Zaporizhzhia, summary. 3 settlements, Huliaipol, Verkhnya Tersa, Voskresenka, constituted the Eastern Zaporizhzhia defensive line. That line is collapsing, once they fall, and it's a question of when, not if. There are no settlements of comparable size or defensive value between the current front and Kharkiv. Just small villages. The Zaporizhzhia direction is opening up. In parallel, fierce fighting continues in the Oleksandrorad area, between Velika Mikhailivka and the Vovcha River. Russian forces are attempting to hold positions on the Ukrainian bank. AFU are counterattacking to stabilize the line. The eastern group of forces reports on this daily. Kharkiv and the western flank Ukrainian forces are clearly already planning for the loss of those three settlements and are moving preemptively. Around Mala Tokmachka, AFU are launching counterattacks, attempting to occupy the grey zone and improve their positions before the battle for Kharkiv begins in earnest. Over the past 24 hours, this has partially worked. Russian units pulled back again toward Highway H08. A buffer zone is taking shape northeast of Kharkiv. Ukrainian forces are preparing for what will soon be the decisive battle for that city. On the western Zaporizhzhia direction, one more notable update. Several analysts and mapping resources now confirm that Ukrainian forces have taken near-complete control of Stepnohursk. The information is being distributed at what amounts to semi-official level through pro-Ukrainian sources. For context, as recently as April 30, 2026, most of this territory was under Russian control. 3 weeks, substantial shift, and this too is part of the broader Ukrainian preparation for the main engagement over the city of Zaporizhzhia. Geopolitics, Cuba and the Strait of Hormuz. Now to the geopolitical bloc, and there's plenty to discuss here as well. The Cuban crisis. Several weeks ago, the Americans recalled carrier strike group CVN-78 Gerald Ford from the eastern Mediterranean, officially for maintenance. Almost immediately after it returned to port, a Nimitz-class carrier, CVN-68, entered the Caribbean and began taking up position near Cuba. The operational picture emerging from current reporting. The planned action may follow the Venezuela template, an attempt to arrest a high-ranking official. The likely target being discussed is Raúl Castro, the president's brother. For now, this is still in the reconnaissance and psychological pressure phase. But the carrier is already there, and that's not posturing. Nothing can be ruled out. The Strait of Hormuz. Iran tightens its grip. Iran is methodically consolidating its control over the Strait of Hormuz. In recent days, details have emerged about a new administrative body that will govern transit through the strait. Looking at the published maps, the area of responsibility assigned to this structure includes waters around Fujairah, the UAE port through which the Emirates export oil and gas via a pipeline bypass route around the strait itself. That means any commercial vessel transiting through Fujairah toward open ocean will now effectively be operating within Iran's declared zone of control, with all the financial and logistical implications that entails. The situation continues to deteriorate. Neither US military posture nor diplomatic pressure in the region has produced any visible results. The underlying logic is fairly clear. Washington is not prepared to escalate against Iran before the November midterms. A high-profile Cuba operation, the arrest of Raúl Castro, could hand the Republicans a headline win ahead of the vote. After the elections, if the outcome is favorable for Trump, a new wave of pressure on Iran in the Middle East should be considered all but inevitable. That's all for today. If this was useful, hit the like button, it genuinely helps the channel. Subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next one.